I want to thank one of our incredible sponsors, BrainTap. You may have listened to our podcast with the founder of BrainTap, Patrick Porter. And if you did, you'll definitely want to get involved in BrainTap. And if you didn't, please, I strongly recommend that you go back and listen. It's so incredibly informative. Here's what BrainTap can do. You can literally build your brain fitness with BrainTap's mobile app and wearable headset. Everyone here at Outcomes the Sun podcast has had and continues to have positive results with BrainTap. Your brain is guided from awake and reactionary patterns to intuitive and creative responses. BrainTap is backed by neuroscience and research and was developed by Patrick Porter himself. BrainTap creates a symphony of brainwave activity to optimize your brain's potential, restore your ability, balance your energy, and calm your brain. And listen, it is a game changer when it comes to sleep. This technology is truly a gift, and I am so incredibly grateful to be able to share it with you.
Hi, everyone. This is Mariel Hemingway, and you have come to Outcomes the Sun podcast. I am with my partner, Mellissa Yamaguchi, who's right here. And we have an amazing guest today. Somebody I sort of stalked on Instagram. I have to admit, I stalked you. And her name is Dr. Tyna Moore, and she is an amazing functional medicine, and correct me if I get things wrong, because I probably will. Functional medicine doctor, a naturopath, and like what she talks about and how she talks about lifestyle as it relates to mental health is just like, oh, I felt like, you feel like you're with your people when you hear people talking about like how, the body and the mind are so interconnected. So I wanted to have Dr. Tyna on. So first of all, welcome to our little
Thank you.
thing. And
thank you so much for having me.
So good. I would love for you to tell me a little bit. I mean, we talked about it. I was on your podcast, and because you were interviewing me, I didn't get to hear as much about your story in regard to having mental health issues in the past, and how suicidal thought, like things, like big things, and you sort of pass them off like, oh well, whatever. I went through that. I was like, oh, wait a second, let's put the brakes on here. So I'd love for you to tell both Mellissa and I a little bit about that, like what happened, and where you were in your life, maybe.
Sure. So, well, thank you so much for having me. I was so honored that you reached out to me on Instagram, or you commented on one of my posts, and I was like, oh, Mariel Hemingway. And every time I tell any of my gal pals who are, similar age to me, they're all like, oh my God. So I loved having you on my podcast. I'm so glad that you came on and we connected. So I'm a naturopathic physician and a chiropractor. So yeah, functional medicine would be a great description. I have been in practice for, I recently left practice right before COVID, but up until that point, it had been about 15 years. I'd been in medicine my whole life. And really, I was looking for answers. I was just trying to seek out answers for myself and for family. In my story, I was a happy kid. I grew up in Southern California. I was active. I was tan. I was, fit. I was a gymnast. I was a little surfer girl. And then my parents moved me to Oregon when I was 15, and it was like the lights went out. I have no other way to describe it. And they literally did, right? We lost the sun moving here. And I had no idea that, I joke, I didn't even know that I had freckles on my arms until I moved to Oregon and my suntan went away. I had never been not tan. I was such an active little outside girl. And so I quickly fell into a horrific depression and just spiraled down. I had no idea what was happening. I think it was a lot of things. Up until that point, in the years prior to us moving, I was living off of a lot of junk food, a lot of processed junk food, and not eating hardly any protein at all, eating a lot of like corn chips and Velveeta cheese and just junk. And a lot of those foods actually not only are junk, but they deplete nutrients out of your body. So I think I was dealing with a pretty severe malnourishment issue. I actually, the year prior to moving to Oregon, my entire year of 8th grade, I had these terrible sores on the inner corners of my mouth that would not go away. And I had chronic sores inside my mouth. And I later learned through my schooling and through my training that was due to some pretty severe B vitamin deficiencies. And these are symptoms you don't see in modern days as often, right? So I was just severely malnourished. I had sort of put myself there, was dealing with a decent eating disorder on top of it all, just the typical tween, Southern California tween mess. And I moved to Oregon and I just quickly sort of spiraled down, and I don't even know if there was even a good instigator, to be honest with you. I just found myself, I was around that time too. I kind of, to be honest, I woke up to like the bullshittery of the world. I had some sort of like epiphany that adults really didn't have a clue what was going on. Politically, things were very volatile. I didn't really have the knowledge or the words to use. I just knew something was wrong and I was mad about it. And so all of that culminated into a suicide attempt when I was 15, dead of winter in Oregon, ended up in a psych ward for a week. And I remember it so well still to this day. And I remember waking up the next morning and going to breakfast with these other young people that were in the same ward. And they were really, and I'm not trying to throw anyone under the bus, but these were heavily disturbed kids. I mean, these kids, I was like, I don't belong here. These kids are really, I had a supportive family. I had, it wasn't the right spot for me. And I remember they had their like tutor, the teacher that comes in to teach, she did an assessment on me and she came out, and I remember listening to her discuss with whoever my overseeing counselor was or therapist. I don't know. I don't remember the whole setup, but I remember her saying her IQ is off the charts. I can't teach her. Like, I can't tutor this girl. I think she's just angry. I think she's not being challenged enough in school and she's just angry. And it was true, because when my parents moved me, I was so upset about the whole situation that I had always been in the gifted and talented education program in California. And I remember moving to Oregon and they tested me for that program in Oregon. And I just drew a design on the Scantron. So I got placed in, oh, there's your kitty, Mariel. Your kitty just went behind.
Of course. It's always, it's animals moving through.
I had placed, in like the kind of the regular kids classes. And so there I was, not being challenged whatsoever and clearly frustrated. I only share that because I really think we need to be challenging our young people to their full potential. And so there I was, I met with the head psychiatrist. He pulled my mom in and said, she's angry. She's a very angry young woman. She doesn't need to be here. She needs something else. And so I remember being released after that. But for others who've gone through a similar situation, it's interesting. It sort of like opens a gateway up that you can't close after that. Like, once you actively try to take your life and you pass out, like I passed out from overdosing on over-the-counter medications and woke up in the hospital covered in charcoal vomit, and you can't close that door. It's kind of creeps in there. And I have found over the years through my journey, I've had a lot of autoimmune disease pop up since then. I've had a lot of things sort of like, it makes it make sense. I have some autoimmune conditions that actively attack the central nervous system. And so I understand that it's like a brain on fire kind of scenario. And so my long game through all of this was really just to try to figure out how to help myself and help my family with this sort of plague that we have. And I've come to realize that what goes on here in the body definitely dictates how the mind behaves. I used to think it was the other way around, but you can't really think yourself out of that sort of thing when your brain's on fire. So I think a lot of it comes down to neuroinflammation. It comes down to how we're wired, genetics, epigenetics, nutrition through the years, lots of different things. But I feel that I've sort of biohacked it at this point.
Yeah.
That's where I'm going with it.
It's amazing. And for the audience that doesn't really understand, what happened is that you went to literally a dark state. I mean, I'm here in Idaho and it's snowing and it's getting dark at, it's 5:15 here and it's already, it's getting dark. And that what is seasonal affective disorder, it is what happens. And when you've come from sunshine, it's a powerful, like you need to find tools. And people don't realize, like, and even if there is no sun, getting outside and getting the light, that's important too, because sometimes it's not just the sun. I mean, the sun is, it's an amazing gift, and we should all get more of it, and we shouldn't be afraid of the sun, even for our skin. It's important. But I love how, you describe this situation that I think happens to a lot of people, because, like, you were there in this group of kids who, you weren't really like them, but you had been challenged and taken out of where your body functioned best, I think, right? Wouldn't you say? I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah, and
it's profound.
it was like compounding issues, right? I think I think therapies and good health is synergistic upon one another, and so it's never one thing in isolation. Everybody wants a pill, even if it's a supplement, or they want the thing, they want the red light or the sauna or
Yeah.
the thing, and it's not.
Yeah.
That's not how it works. It's synergistic, and all of those things build upon each other. And I think I just, I always joke I'd rather die tan from skin cancer than go out in horrific pain and depression, right?
Right.
Like riddled with autoimmune disease. And so over the years, I am better when I'm tan, straight up. And I was preaching the accolades of the sun way back in medical school, and I was getting so much heat for it. And years later, all these great studies come out showing, women who, like in Sweden, there was a study of tens of thousands of women over many years showing those who stayed tan or sunbathed regularly, had far better outcomes throughout their life and for all cause mortality. So the sun is a gift. The infrared is a gift. I think it structures our water inside our bodies, that fourth phase
100%.
But
what you're saying is, like, all of these things are interconnected. I love that because I'm always saying to people, I do this thing with Optum Idaho, which is kind of it's a behavioral health kind of group. And I do these PSAs, but I'm always saying, look, it's not one thing. It's not just getting the sun. It's not just doing a sauna. It's not just cold plunge. It's not just eating well. It's all of these things. Our life is this combination of everything we do. So it's how do you wake up in the morning? What do you drink water? Is that water? I mean, behind me, we actually try to structure our water, especially during this time of year, right? So, and even up here when it's really those dark, cold months, I'll even go to a tanning salon, just, every couple of weeks, just hello. And it helps. It really helps. And we're not talking about the color that you get. We're talking about your body needs that light. It's powerful. It's powerful stuff. And it's not just one thing. So that's again why I love you so much. I love you so much.
Well, if I could you say something really interesting that I've read that you said, where you said, live like a human. And I found that really simple little expression pretty powerful, because we've become so disconnected from nature and from our world and from a simple medicine of air and water and sun and earth. And so that really simple prescription, if you will, is so powerful. And for those who have not heard your expansion on that, would you mind sharing that live like a human?
Sure. So that was a random Twitter post I made. It's not one thing, like going back to my story, I came into it malnourished. Clearly I had, for a year I had these mouth sores, clearly indicating some kind of nutritional deficiency, if not multiple. I was put under a lot of stress by the move. I was moved in the middle of the year, and I'm not complaining. I just, looking back on it, it makes sense to me that, something would snap. And then the fact that I was an outside girl. I was constantly outside at the beach. I mean, I literally was at the beach. We would get up and get on the bus at 6:30 in the morning and spend the entire day on the coast at the beach in San Clemente. And then we'd bus home. And then all of a sudden here I am smack in the middle of Oregon. There's trees everywhere. I remember feeling really claustrophobic because I couldn't see the light, even if it was out. The trees were everywhere. Some people would love that. I did not like it. I still don't like it. And I became an inside little hermit, and that's not, and I still
Who
do
you
it to
were.
this day. I find myself getting hermity, and I think of you, Mariel, of like, just go outside and put your feet on the ground. It will change things. Something will change, right?
Right.
Go for a walk. Like, it'll shift. You won't come back the same person. And so I think that we need to understand that we've put ourselves in boxes under weird lights all day long. We go from one box to another. We go from our car box to our cubicle box to our house box to our bedroom box. And we go to the gym and we train
In
in
another
a
box.
gym, which is another
Yeah.
box. And
with bad lighting and bad floors, right?
oh,
Like
always, right?
it's all completely
Bad
like
air.
bad
Bad
air, all of it. And
All of it.
crazy flipping music that you're like, whoa, this is not my choice.
So we do these things to try to like and I don't actually like the word biohack, to be honest. I think it's, we biohack our way out of it, but it's like, we just need basics. And if the basics aren't met, it doesn't matter what you throw upon it. So it doesn't matter what access you have to anything. And I understand there's a lot of privilege in these things I'm mentioning, but like, you can throw all the stem cells and all the fancy hormones and all the things on top, which we try to do to anti-age. But if you're not meeting the basics, if you're not going outside regularly, and I live in Oregon, so like if I have to put on my rain gear and go out in the rain, so be it. If you're not moving, if you're not sweating, if you're not having sex and intimacy and touching other people and getting oxytocin, maybe that's cuddling your infant or your dog, or like maybe it's, I mean, that was part of that post, and people lost their minds about it. They're like, how am I supposed to have sex every day if I'm single? And I'm like, I don't know, self-pleasure yourself. Like, find ways to connect to your body. And movement is another way to connect to your body. And our pets are really incredible for like getting that oxytocin hit, and eat like you give a damn, and sleep like it's a job, because it's like, that's something that's non-negotiable. And I don't know.
I agree. I guard my sleep.
It.
Yeah. I agree with you. These are all the tenets of what I think creates a balanced brain. I mean, neural inflammation is because we're not doing these things. And you're right. It's, you can't put those things on top of an unhealthy, unbalanced lifestyle, right? You can't put hormones and stem cells on top of something that's not functioning, right. Because ultimately, don't we all want to activate our own body's response to nature, to good food? All of a sudden you put good food in, and then things start working, the gut starts working. Then you can add the supplements that are going to activate those things and make them better. But if they're not working initially and you're not doing anything to create that by, eating well or drinking water, I mean, the simplest things. But it seems that we've complicated our lives so much in this society that people are so confused. People don't know how to eat. We've been here for how many, thousands? We don't know how to eat. We don't know how to eat. We don't know to get sun. Go ahead, Mellissa. Sorry, I was crazy.
We stopped art classes in school, in the public school system. We cut back on art. We cut back on physical activity. All these creative and physical outlets that our kids need. And so now they grow through the rings, and now they're in college level. I'm speaking from experience here with my own children. And one of the things that I've watched with my children, who are almost 21 and just turned 23, is that they exercise, and they can tell you with incredible clarity and definition that exercise keeps them so mentally and spiritually balanced. And my son in college said, because he graduated in 2020 during the height of the lockdown, and then at his freshman year of college, nobody was allowed to go out of their dorms. We got him into a house off campus, so he was good. He could bike on the weekends and go play basketball. He was healthy. But he kept saying to me, everyone's so accustomed to this new normal that getting out of the house feels they walk out with a little bit of trepidation. They communicate and approach other people in just normal conversation with trepidation. So he said that he's noticed when he's rallying his roommates, he lives in a house with 4 or 5 guys, he'll say, look, come on, let's go to the gym. Come on, let's go play basketball. They all come back laughing and slapping each other on the back. And those who have elected to, no, I'm good, stay in the room and watch Netflix or whatever the choice is, he said, I can see a marked difference. And So I know that the exercise that we've not pushed our kids have lacked in school, and then they're learning that habit as they get older. But you said something else, and I made a point of putting two things that I really wanted to get from you, because I think they were so valuable. Aside from what you're already sharing, is that you said muscle is insurance, and that
I
resonated
love
with me.
that comment.
Yeah, an older woman. And I'm always telling her, I don't care what you have to do, move, 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 move. And my dad, move. I'm trying to get my parents to move. My in-laws work out at the gym every day. And I'm so envious that they've got that drive. And I'm trying to kind of blow that dust onto my parents to get them. Because you're like when you said that frailty from lack of movement will just invite in a whole host of nonsense and chaos that doesn't need to happen. And I'd really love for you to share that, because it's vital for all age groups.
Yes. Well, first I want to say your son sounds like a smart young man, because I wish I had that insight when I was that age. I went through a lot of unnecessary misery because I hadn't discovered the benefits of just movement.
Mm-hmm.
So muscle in so many ways is an active organ system, and it's one that we can build. It's the only one we can build. And it does so many good things for us that we could talk about another day. But most importantly, I think it activates chemicals in the brain. It activates the feel-good neurotransmitters. It activates neuronal activity. So you actually get connections staying and growing, which is so important as we age, because we start to atrophy our brains and our bodies.
Yep.
And we have so much data. I was at the advent of this pandemic. I was beating the drum. I was like, go lift weights, guys. And I kept getting accused of being ableist. And I don't think they were understanding the benefits I was trying to get at. But we now, all these years later, have strong data, repeat studies showing those who just simply exercised had significant reduction, something like 48% reduction in even illness at all from COVID. One study out of South Korea that had tens of thousands of people in it showed, I think, like a 25% reduction of even catching COVID if you exercised regularly. So simply just moving regularly. And then that went on, this later studies went on to show significant, and I have some of this information on my Instagram, the exact numbers, but significant reduction in hospitalization, ventilation, death from COVID. So just simply the act of moving. But what did we do? We locked everybody up and told them to stay in, which was mind blowing to me. It is
right. And then everybody's habits were horrible, and they just ate horrible and drank, drank
it all
alcohol.
went to hell. Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but it was like, oh my God, it was like the worst choices made anyway. And isolation, and and not touching, and. It was crazy.
Well, isolation, we have data showing isolation causes inflammation and immunosuppression. So we have like immunosuppression and inflammation combined. Anyway, long story short, frailty, the one thing I've sort of like fleshed out of this whole situation, and we knew this prior to the pandemic, but I was really I'm glad the data has come out on it during the pandemic. Those who went into this illness frail didn't have a good time coming out. And most people going into anything frail don't have a good time coming out if they make it out. So whether it's cancer or something acute, you walk in with frailty and you're in trouble, because most of these conditions at their core are wasting diseases. The inflammation they cause you to waste. So you're already going to lose muscle mass. So if you go into COVID with some muscle in your body, expect to lose some, but it's an insurance. It's literally a suit of armor. And not to mention, one of the cool things it does is it secretes myokines, and myokines are anti-inflammatory. So the dreaded cytokine storm that was killing everybody, and still, that's a problem with influenza. That's a problem with any condition, cancer. That's why we see wasting in cancer. That cytokine involvement is a real problem. Well, those same molecules are secreted from skeletal muscle, well-trained skeletal muscle, and they're anti-inflammatory. So you can literally build a suit of anti-inflammatory, and you don't have to be big and buff. Like, I'm not big and buff. I run pretty lean, but like, I just got done lifting, and I was telling my trainer that I was coming on this show, and he asked what I was going to talk about. And he said, I really think nutrition and lifting has so much to do with my mental health. And I said, yes, dude, I would be batshit crazy if I didn't lift weights regularly and didn't eat well. Like, I would literally be a crazy person. I would not be the person I wouldn't probably be here, to be honest with you. So,
well, I think that it saved me in my childhood for sure. I think it definitely, I wasn't eating well like you. I had a major eating disorder. I thought it was healthy, whatever. But But if it weren't for exercise, I don't think I would have survived my childhood. Thank God I went outside. Thank God I always moved. I don't think unless I've been sick, like had the flu or a cold or something, I have exercised every day of my life. And the birth of my children, I didn't exercise those days. But the day of, when the labor started, I went for 10 miles. It was a little
Wow.
crazy. But yeah, I completely agree with you. And that I just love that, muscle is insurance. It's just having strength, having that is amazing. And you don't get that through, you only get that through exercise, weight training, and good food. The combination really is powerful.
Yeah, you have to eat the protein to build the building blocks, and you have to do the resistance training to build the muscle. And it's for everyone. It's for every gender, every age. I love going to the gym and seeing the old dudes in there that, they've been at it for decades. They never stopped. And we're not trying to do CrossFit or P90X. We're just trying to keep some muscle mass on. So when something troublesome comes our way, whether it's a fall or, I've had a very severe fall and my muscle saved me. I had a friend get shot randomly. Some guy was cleaning his gun in the apartment complex, went through her wall and shot her. And she was in such incredible shape that her muscle held her together. And the doc was like, if you hadn't been so fit, you would have been blown apart. So,
my gosh.
It truly is insurance. I was at a concert a few years ago and I fell in a ditch that I couldn't see. It was at an intersection. I thought it was a little grassy knoll. It was a ditch, and I fell into it, and I caught myself as I was going down. I almost completely face planted into a curb. Like I would have lost all my teeth. It would have been an emergency room, and I pushed out of it. And I had been complaining to my coach because I had been doing a lot of bench pressing at that time, and I was getting a little too buff for my jackets and my hoodies. And I had been complaining about my I'm going to Hulk out. Right. And it saved my ass completely. And we were at an age appropriate concert. Most everybody there was probably my age or a little older. And I looked at my boyfriend after and I was like, I swear if this were any other woman in this venue who most of the people coming out of that venue that were my age weren't looking so great in their health. And I said, if this had been most other women in that venue, their faces would be gone right now. Thank God my strength training saved me. And
your strength and also your flexibility, because sometimes when you're doing proper kind of training, you do things that are about balance and all that stuff. That's, and the fact that you put your hand, those are all reaction things.
Yeah. So it was real. And it was ironic because I turned to look after I was shaking. I actually started crying because the adrenaline rush, and I got to my car and I turned and looked, and there was my ex-best friend from high school. She didn't see me, and she was lighting up a cigarette, and she's quite overweight. She's very unhealthy. And I saw her and I was like, whoa. What a weird, I didn't even say anything to her because I was so out of my mind from the adrenaline. I just wanted to get in the car and go. I was shaking. It was a pretty bad, I really injured my hip and such. Anyway, it was just ironic that I saw her because she was who I was talking about, kind of and not to throw her under the bus, but it was most women in my age group in their late 40s and beyond have really kind of let things go. And it's to their detriment. I just don't want to fall down and break a hip. I don't want to die of the flu. I don't want any of the things that old age brings. I want to hike the Great Wall of China when I'm 80 if I want to. I want to have intimacy with my husband.
Absolutely. And you've mentioned something that I think is really important. I think that what happens with age is really just a cultural sort of, it's like the system telling you, okay, you're 60. I'm 61 on Tuesday.
Happy birthday.
But they tell you that as you get older that, those creaks and aches and all those things, because, you definitely feel things more as you get older. But it's only when you quit moving that they accelerate. But it's like this choice. You go, oh well, I'm getting aches and pains. I better slow down, instead of saying no. I'm gonna get through this. I'm gonna push through. And Melissa and I talk about this a lot because we both are our mornings are all about movement and, movement, meditate, it's all those things. I'm inspired. I know Melissa is too. We're inspired by this conversation because it's everything we talk about. It's everything we want people to learn. And it seems so simple for us because we know it. And so many people have no clue. They have no clue.
They have no clue. I say it's a superpower
blows
or
my
a
mind.
sixth sense.
I know.
It's like a sixth, and you don't know what it feels like unless you have it.
Right.
And you have to build it, and it's earned. It's not anything you can buy. It's earned. And even if my coach and I were talking, like I said earlier, like he's like, even if you couldn't afford me, because I realize that's a privilege, something I work very hard to have the privilege to do. But when I couldn't afford him, you do these things at home. We have body weight. We pick up our dogs. We pick up milk jugs. Whatever it is, there's ways to work around this. There was before the advent of personal trainers, there were still people in good shape, right? So,
well, you should see our living room. We have an assault bike. We've got the ski erg. We've got a rowing machine in our living room. It's not a living room. I was like, Bob, and then we've got like rings. 2 sets of rings. So anyway,
fun.
I've got it all
like a jungle
at home.
gym.
He goes to the gym anyway, but I'm like, I think I've got enough here. But it's hard. It's hard to, I mean, it's not hard for me because it's like a passion. I know how good I feel, but it's hard for a lot of people. So it's nice to be able to go to a place and feel the energy of being pushed towards that. You know what I mean? Like some people need a little bit of a jolt, a push into that. But I just think it's a privilege to take care of yourself. And I think that you do too, which is just cool to hear about.
Absolutely. It's, I think getting older is a privilege, and I definitely have aches and pains. I mean, I deal with a lot of chronic pain. I have some autoimmune stuff that leads to a lot of really painful arthritis and in an inflammatory way. And I just, if I didn't move, it would be 10 times worse.
Right. Right.
Yeah, it hurts. Yeah. There's some days when I walk around and I'm like, man, this is sucking. But if I don't go exercise, I hurt 10 times worse, and things get so bad so fast. So it's insurance.
I was speaking poorly about my mother, and she's going to watch this because she's very lucid and has a lot of clarity, and I'll hear about it. So I gotta bring her back and lift her up again. She and I were in Paris one time, fortunate enough to go on a mother-daughter trip. And I remember this was prior to a hip replacement because she was bone on bone. And we were in the hotel, and we were talking about going to the Louvre, and I said, we were going to walk. And I said, Mom, let's just get a cab. And she said, no, we're going to walk. And I said, well, you're going to be in pain. And she said, I'm going to be in pain if I'm sitting down. I'm going to be in pain no matter what I'm doing. I'd like to go and see the art, and I'd like to move and walk up to let's walk and see the front, smell the air. So one thing that you were talking about that Mariel and I have talked about a lot is a complaint that we have. Well, the sun is going down, and I am slowly becoming more attractive because all the dimmers are going on. Sorry, I apologize for how dark it's getting in here. But one of the things there's a story that I shared with Mariel at some point that I'd read where this guy goes to see a dentist, and the guy's in his 60s, 70s. And the dentist said, he said, I've got a few complaints about my teeth here in the front in particular. And she says, well, it's okay. It's normal for a man your age. You're going to have wear and tear on your teeth. There's no reason to fix it. He said, hold up. I'm only, whatever the age was, 60, 70. Why don't you come back and fix my teeth as though I were a 19-year-old and get my teeth ready because I plan on using them for the next 30, 40 years. And she said, okay, buddy. And he said, I plan on living a very long time. That's my motivation every day. And I want to use my teeth. And so this is a conversation we have about how it's one thing for each of us independently to have that wherewithal to know that aging is a privilege, and we are going to have aches and pains, and let's keep going. But a lot of people don't have that support system, which is one of the number one reasons that Mariel and I wanted to do this podcast, is that we can expose our audience to geniuses like you who understand the brilliance of the body. And it's so important. So I really want to Mariel and I will most certainly, Mariel's very adept at getting the information on there verbally, but we'll make sure that we get your information on. We really want our audience to follow you. Your information is just stellar. And
Thank you.
people don't have the connection, and we do look up to our doctors. We seek them for advice and information. And when a doctor's saying, those teeth are going to serve you, you're not going to probably have them that much longer, they're perfect for your age. Well, those are the kind of information you're getting from a leader in the medical industry. It's frustrating. So we want to highlight and spotlight what you share, because it's so poignant and profound.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Well, Dr.
I'm
Tyna,
trying.
our show is very short. I like it because we get in and you want more. We want more of Dr. Tyna.
I like it.
So you got to come back probably. And you're just amazing, as I've said many, many times before. And thank you for taking the time to really kind of tell us your story, and really how you use the body and lifestyle to create a balanced brain and have that beautiful smile on your face all the time.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's honestly a real honor, and I hope that the audience feels some inspiration. It's I always say wellness is a journey, not a destination. So we're just trying to do the best we can each day, right? And
absolutely,
like you said on my podcast, like just do something and you will feel different. It will shift, right? So even in the darkest of times, just do something and things will shift.
Cool.
Thank you so much for joining us today on Out Comes the Sun. You can listen to our podcast on Spotify, on Apple, and on YouTube. And you can donate to the Mariel Hemingway Foundation at the marielhemingwayfoundation.org. And I want to spell Hemingway for you, HEMINGWAY.org. I only say that because a lot of people put 2 M's, and that just won't work. Also, if you're watching on YouTube, you can go to the donate button at the bottom and it will take you right to a link with the QR code. And if you go to marielhemingway.org, you can also press the donate button and be able to donate to the foundation, which is designed to help guide people towards finding the right solutions for their mental health issues. That is my goal. I'm just trying to raise money so I can come up with an app and a website that has all the information you could possibly want to know about mental health and where to go. But we are in the process of making that happen, and your donation means so much to us. So thank you so much, and we'll see you next week.